Do you think that this means this plan will avoid a government shutdown?
They're leaving the door open to it. I think that everybody's still kind of assessing and waiting to see what the final bill looks like, but they're certainly not slamming the door. You saw Senator Schumer say that he's pleased with some aspects of it. We saw President Biden saying he's open to it, which is a big change in tone from what his press secretary said last week. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in the House has said that they're evaluating it. So they're not fully embracing it, but the fact that Democrats aren't slamming the door on this proposal does suggest that there's a path here to get to a solution if Johnson can guide it through his conference. The big question is he's getting already some pushback from the far right wing of his party. Can he sustain that? Will he accept that flack if it means getting Democratic votes and avoiding this shutdown at the end of the week?
That's where I was going to go here. It looks like he will need Democrats to some extent. I talked to Chrissy Houlihan today, a Democrat from Pennsylvania. She said she hadn't decided, and I suspect that we're all waiting to hear from Hakeem Jeffries. Will there be a call tonight or tomorrow morning, a meeting in which he says, go for it, Democrats support this? Because we're talking about a potential floor vote tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two ways it could happen. There'll certainly be a Democratic meeting. They're all flying in for a vote this evening.
Yeah.
They'll have a meeting in the morning. It could be that he says, yes, we need to support this to avoid a shutdown. Or it could just be that he says, you know what? Vote your conscience. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. And there are some number of Democrats who will say, you know what, I want to avoid a shutdown at all costs. I will support this, even if many Democrats oppose it. The question is, how many Democratic votes are going to be needed? Yeah. And will they be there if Hakeem Jeffries doesn't necessarily push people?
And that question is needed because Speaker Johnson is not getting potentially all the votes he needs on the Republican side, especially
Absolutely.
from the hard right. Representative Chip Roy spoke earlier today about opposing this plan.
For the same reasons that, I opposed the CR on October 1st, I opposed a CR that the current Speaker Johnson, is putting forward, because it continues to perpetuate the very system my constituents sent me here to oppose. They don't want me to continue spending money we don't have at $1.6 trillion spending level, at the Pelosi spending level, the Pelosi spending policies and priorities.
Julie, aren't we back to the same exact position that Kevin McCarthy was in, the former speaker, and then he got ousted for?
Well, we're in a very similar situation, but here's what's different here. Some hardliners, like you just saw Chip Roy there, are concerned about it, will express concern, may definitely vote against it. However, this is a speaker that the hardliners wanted. So he may have the grace of just beginning the job, and they may work a little bit harder to make sure it makes it through the finish line.
Well, talk to us for a minute more about Chip Roy. The gentleman from Texas brings a few other lawmakers with him. How much of the party do we think he's speaking for here?
Well, I think at this point, he's not speaking just for himself. He probably wouldn't have gone out there and done that, but he may not have a large group with him. We know there are a certain number that are already saying, yes, we're going to vote against that. We've seen that in the past. Some do come forward and change their minds as this goes on. As you know, that this is a situation that is ever changing. This is similar to what Kevin McCarthy was in. However, there were people that wanted to get rid of him from day one. I think there may be a little bit more grace right now with Mike Johnson.
We also have to talk about some pretty unexpected news yesterday evening. And I say unexpected because the clip of Senator Tim Scott suspending his campaign on Fox, the anchor looked confused.
The anchor, of course, is a former lawmaker who he's supposedly very good friends with in Trey Gowdy, and I wasn't sure if he was more surprised than I was at the moment. You'd think that he might have gotten a tip-off on that.
Right, that he's going to break massive news, and he wasn't aware. Yeah, let's roll it.
I love America more today than I did on May 22nd. But when I go back to Iowa, it will not be as a presidential candidate. I am suspending my campaign. I think the voters who are the most remarkable people on the planet have been really clear that they're telling me, not now, Tim.
Julie, fine, the look was everything, actually looked stunned. And you don't really see that, I feel like, a lot on cable news. What does this mean now for... go for it.
I think one thing is clear. You don't want to play poker, or you do want to play poker with Trey Gowdy for sure. The man has no poker face. It's a little bit surprising. Seriously, you've got to think you know that in advance. If not, I mean, he did an excellent job of appearing stunned. It's just not something you see before. I think that the senator was like, I'm not going on the debate stage again. Look what just happened to me here. So he decided this is the right time to get out of the race. Whether he decided at that exact moment or there was thought behind it, that's something that'll take some time to figure out.
Well, we've got a big conversation going now about where does the Tim Scott money go? Where do the percentage points in the poll go? He didn't have that many. And a lot of folks are looking to Nikki Haley, who's dropping $10 million on a big ad buy. It's TV, radio, and digital going into the caucuses and into New Hampshire. $10 million is 5 times what Ron DeSantis is spending here. And Jonathan, I wonder what that tells us, maybe more about Ron DeSantis than Nikki Haley right now, but you know, the trajectory of these two campaigns are taking on 2 different directions.
Yeah, and the Senator Scott dropping out, of course, relates to Nikki Haley because they're both from South Carolina. So you have to think they have a lot of donors and supporters in common. People who supported Senator Scott certainly are going to know Nikki Haley. And yes, she is the person on the upward trajectory, and that establishment wing of the party has been looking for somebody to consolidate around. People thought it was going to be Ron DeSantis, but at the moment, it looks much more likely to be Nikki Haley, and that spending is only going to, money attracts more money. So the fact that she's putting that out there is going to be attractive to other donors in the party as well.
And she's having she's meeting with a number of huge Wall Street donors this week. We've scooped that she's going to be in New York. She's sitting down with the likes of Gary Cohn. He's co-hosting this event for her. But at the end of the day, Jonathan, even though there's a lot of momentum, it feels like, behind Nikki Haley, it's the tale of 2 primaries. There's one standout winner, and that's the former president.
That's right. I mean, momentum is relative here, right? We're talking about a fraction of the percent that Donald Trump has, and it's the continuing split between the donor establishment class of the Republican Party and the base of the Republican Party. And the establishment class has made clear they don't like Donald Trump. The base has made clear they love Donald Trump. And the base has consistently won that fight. And they are still so far. Even if Nikki Haley was to consolidate all of the other support in the party, she still might not be able to defeat Donald Trump.